Hello, thanks for checking out our video here at the Right Law Group. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about how getting a DUI can affect your license. So we've talked before in other videos about what types of DUIs there are and different things that happen on the criminal side, but today I really want to focus on the implications that the DMV has for anyone driving under the influence. So first and foremost, there's a difference between the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, and the Colorado court system here. The DMV is a separate entity. They operate on their own. They handle everything on a completely separate basis than the criminal side of a DUI. So when you get a DUI, you're going to be looking at two different locations where you're going to be having hearings. You'll have hearings at the Department of Motor Vehicles, and you'll have hearings here at the county courthouse. For Colorado Springs people, that's here down on Tejon Street. And I'm pointing to it because I can see it right outside my window, so sorry if that was confusing. When you have a DUI, there is going to be a little information thing that's given to you, and I'm not going to show this because it's got client information on here, but there's going to be a sheet of paper that a DUI officer fills out, and it's called the Express Consent Affidavit form. What this is they're going to be going over whether you choose to do a breath test, a blood test, or whether you refuse, and this is what's sent to the Department of Motor Vehicles to determine how they proceed. So, let's say first you are looking at either a breath or a blood test. Now, for the DMV, what they're concerned with is whether you are over that .08 presumption of driving under the influence of alcohol. So it's kind of tricky. So, as you know, here in Colorado, weed is legal. So the DMV doesn't have any kind of way to monitor whether you're over the presumption. And actually, if you refer back to our video on the different types of DUIs, you can kind of understand why. But the DMV, if you are caught driving under the influence with weed in your system, even if you do a blood test, the DMV isn't able to do anything with your license at that point. So there's not a whole lot that they have going on there. With people who are charged with DUI D, so driving under the influence of drugs, the DMV doesn't really do any kind of revocation process until later on that the courts make some determination. Today we're going to be focusing on alcohol though. So if you're above that .08 legal limit, what happens? Let's say you decide to do a breath or a blood test. It's submitted off. With breath tests, it's a little bit faster because the officer will get that reading that night, and they'll be able to send it off to the DMV. If you choose a blood test, what's going to happen is they will have to take the vials of blood, send them off to the laboratory to be analyzed, and that's going to take a little bit more time than if you just did a breath test. Regardless, let's say it comes back and you're above a .08. Now, here in Colorado, the rule is if you're above a .08, then you have to go before the DMV to have a hearing on the revocation of your license. Now, you have the opportunity to go. If you decide not to go, they're automatically going to revoke your license. But you'll be given a packet in the mail. It's sent to your mailing address, and it'll invite you to come to a hearing if you want to request an officer. There's a whole bunch of different things going on with that hearing. I always advise getting an attorney to handle this for you. What we do here at the Right Law Group is we offer that service to our clients for a very low flat fee. We'll go handle it all for you so you don't have to worry about it at all, because there are a couple different things that you can do to give yourself a better chance. But regardless, what the DMV does is they go through and they see at this hearing whether or not you have been correctly served with your information by the cops, so whether they properly gave you express consent, and then they look at whether you were above that .08, and let's assume, because the DMV is set up to take your license away in these cases, let's assume you're at the .08. What will happen is the DMV will instate a revocation of your driving privilege. Now, it also depends on what number DUI this is for you. So if it's your first, it's going to be a different time frame of revocation than if it's your third. And I can go through all that with you if you'd like. Just shoot me an email, ask me questions. I'm happy to help you out with that. But what the DMV does is they revoke your license for a certain amount of time. However, usually we can get you reinstated if you want to get an interlock device put in your car. Now, that's if you're over the .08. That's completely separate from the criminal system because the criminal system is going to move much slower than the DMV. So a lot of the times, clients that come and are dealing with DUIs, they've lost their license well before they've even been to court for the DUI. So it's completely separate and it's a pain in the butt to try to understand. That's why I wanted to work through this with you today. The issue then becomes, what are the kind of the differences? If you have a refusal where you refuse to give a breath or a blood test, the DMV automatically revokes your license. A lot of the police officers will take your license from you right then. Then you can't drive. You have to wait until everything else is resolved. And in certain circumstances, we can actually still get your license back on a restricted license with an interlock, even if you refuse. But the process is a little bit different in that case. Again, send me questions. I'm happy to answer them for you. This is just kind of an overview so you have an idea. A good question that's come up with a lot of my clients is, what happens if you're not quite at that 0.08, but you have some alcohol in your system? With the DMV, the way that they are set up, if you are below 0.08, they're not going to revoke your license. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have issues with the criminal justice system. That's a completely separate entity, but for the purposes of the Department of Motor Vehicles, initially, if you're below that 0.08, they're not going to revoke your license. Again, if you have a DWAI or something else, it could change later on, but initially you're not going to lose it. Same thing like I talked about with marijuana or drugs in your system. A lot of people ask, does the court system have the ability to influence the Department of Motor Vehicles findings? Generally speaking, the DMV and the criminal justice system are completely separate. So things that happen to the DMV don't really affect what's happening in the court system. However, sometimes at DMV hearings we can get the officers to say things that are helpful to your case, and so attorneys will pull the information and the transcripts from that hearing and use it to benefit you in the criminal justice system. The other way that they overlap a little bit is, let's say you had marijuana in your system and you got pulled over for a DUI. You didn't lose your license because the DMV doesn't take your license away at that point, but then you actually go to court and you have a conviction entered against you for DUI. At that point, what happens is the conviction enters on the court side and it triggers a notice to go to the DMV, and then the DMV will revoke you for the DUI, even though originally they didn't. Again, it's kind of a convoluted process, but the key things to take away from this are the DMV and the criminal justice system are completely separate. You have to have a separate hearing at the DMV, and it's unrelated to the ones that you have at the criminal justice system here downtown. If you're above a 0.08, 95% of the time you're going to lose your license. Now, again, we can get it back to you after either a 30 or 60 day period of not driving if you decide to install an interlock device, but that's different for each case, and I'm happy to talk with you about that. If you have THC in your system, they're not going to automatically revoke you because they don't have that level like they do with a DUI. And if you have a refusal, the Department of Motor Vehicles will automatically take your license away. Again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to go over that with you. We also have more information in the videos here on our YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook and writelawgroup.com. And if you have any questions or want any more information or videos on other topics that we've touched on here, just let us know. Thanks so much.